I kind of want to ask you a little bit about that because, as we're planning for retirement or thinking about retirement at the next stages, I think we typically just think about like, okay, how can we pay our bills? These are the bills we have now. Maybe we downsize and move to a smaller home, but this is kind of what we need to survive, or
Yeah.
have a comfortable life. But there are other things that come into play, like you mentioned, the long-term care and other things that maybe we don't think about that could cripple us at that point,
Yeah.
because right around, like you said, right around the age that I'm retiring, if things work out, like my parents are going to be in a point where like they're probably going to need to be taken care of, or they're going to be need to be somewhere where they have some care. I'm not talking about like just throwing them in a nursing home and forgetting about them, but they are going to have probably nurses or doctors visits and all these things that are going to need to be taken care of. And I'm trying to go to Thailand. Like it was a whole, we've got different goals at that point. So it's definitely something that we got to think about that maybe I didn't even think about. And starting to, because I do have siblings, but I don't know that they're thinking about it. And so that we have to start kind of, at least for my portion, I want to start thinking about that. Is that something that you suggest that others, guys that are starting to plan retirement, like, I guess, what are the things that we should be thinking about in terms of planning our retirement, or like that, like you mentioned, maybe that fourth quarter of life?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. And, um, you know, the, when you think about from a financial standpoint and going back to that accumulation phase, it's kind of like, all right, I hire a money manager. Their job is to accumulate assets and to grow those assets. And when you start spending them down and you flip over to retirement, it becomes more about making sure that income is taken care of. And then also, what are the risks that I need to mitigate? Right. So if it's long-term care risk, right, they're kind of hand in hand, because the greatest risk of running out of money is generally going to be due to a proactive long-term care event, a protracted long-term care event, um, where, somebody's requiring 100, $200,000 a year for care. And those
Mhm.
assets are getting drawn down so much faster than the remaining assets are growing back. So there's things and, financial tools that you can put in place, but it's important that you have that conversation with your financial advisor to say, what are we doing from a guarantee standpoint? Right. I got to make sure that the money in the first 5 years of retirement is guaranteed and totally protected from any market loss or interest rate sensitivity or anything like that. Um, should we be committing a portion of this money to having, some sort of long-term care protection put in place? And there's different products that you can, look into, and always encourage people to, please give me a call. We can go over those and talk about the options that are available to them. And that's kind of like how that money's being spent, and along that conversation, because you usually see a difference between the man and the woman, right? The man's looking at the returns. The woman's going, I don't want to run out of money.
Yeah.
And how that money's going to be spent is like, what if something happens to us? We'll figure it out, or hope is not a great strategy for when these things happen.
Right.
And usually by the time they're in front of you, you've lost any leverage, right? You go to an insurance company when you're 75 years old and say, hey, I'd like, long-term care policy. You're not getting any leverage on that,
Yeah.
right? So if you can, within like the last 5-10 years of your work life, maybe make some commitments to that and say, all right, maybe instead of just, funding the 401k, maybe we fund this plan over here so that we get leverage, 2 times, 3 times what we put in for long-term care that's tax-free. And then if we never use it, hey, it becomes a tax-free benefit for our kids. Like, that's a good use of money.